Hey, what's up guys? So today we're going to be talking about a bunch of important rulings and also discussing the column mechanic, but I want to make this a discussion video and I want to open up with this question. When you first start the game, when link summons come out, for those of you guys though, real quick, that don't know what the heck link summons are and what the heck they do in the game, they're going to completely change the way certain decks work because there are these two new zones. Now, I've already done a video of how to actually perform a link summon, what the heck it is. If you guys don't know what the heck link summons are, I'm going to leave it down below in the description box because, again, this is going to completely change certain decks. Some decks just won't be able to function as well as they could have. You're going to have to modify a lot of your decks. But to sum it up real quick, getting monsters out of the extra deck require you to have a spot called the extra monster zone that is unoccupied, or a link monster that will allow you to have multiple monsters from the extra deck now. And you can also even have 7 monsters. You can technically use both of these new zones, and I explained that in another video down below in the description box. I'll link everything so you guys can have access to it. But anyways, that said, now that you guys have that information, again, if you don't know what that link summons are, more importantly, I want to go over a bunch of important rulings and a lot of questions that people had, also discussing about the column mechanic and showing you guys some cards that you might not even known existed, because this column mechanic was introduced a long time ago, but it wasn't really supported. But anyways, first off, this whole new zone is that we have the extra monster zone. It's not considered a normal monster zone. We'll get into that in a second. But I explained that in the videos, like I said, down below, and linked down below in the description box. But I want to ask this question. When you are going first and you do not know what the heck your opponent is playing, do you take the left monster zone over here, or do you take the right monster zone? And if so, why? This could be different if you're playing on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro and also if you're playing in real life, because some will argue it doesn't matter and some will argue it does matter. So again, I wanted to open it up with this discussion question. I'm not going to answer it right here of which one is actually better, because I would like to get some of your guys' feedback from this, because I feel like there are a lot of other things that we can talk about regarding the left side as well as the right side, because depending on the deck that you're playing against, or depending on how you are playing the game, whether it be online or actually playing in real life, it can actually make a difference, potentially. And that's why I want to start out with this question. But now I wanted to go ahead and jump into some of the cards as well as rulings, because again, this is a new mechanic. It's going to be introduced into Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro with an update. And let's go over some of the older cards you guys might not even know existed in the game to support the whole column mechanic, because again, it's going to be pretty important when you go for some of your synchros after you go for a link monster, because it's going to be right below it, or it could be to the left, could be to the right. Again, it depends on the deck as well, because they have different link arrows. But the first two cards I'm going to talk about, I don't think that they're going to actually be any good in this whole new link mechanic format, but I wanted to mention them just in case someone knows a crazy combo. Sometimes, guys, people figure out crazy things, so I might as well mention it. So the first card is Rampaging Rhinos, and it has the ability to, once per turn, it can move to an adjacent unoccupied monster card zone. If this card attacks the monster in the same column, it gains 500 attack during the damage step. So you can actually boost itself up. Again, I don't think this card is really relevant. It is a level 3 though, but I don't think it's really relevant. The next card is Alien Infiltrator. So it's once per turn. This card can move to an adjacent unoccupied monster zone. If no spell, trap, or monster card is in your opponent's side of the field in the same column, it can attack directly. Again, I don't think these two cards are relevant. But let's go ahead and get into the relevant cards. But again, sometimes I overlook cards. People don't really realize there is some crazy combos with certain cards that normal people would look at and be like, these cards are bad. But again, if you guys know how to use them, let me know. But the next one up, this one's actually kind of viable. But anyways, it's Storm Shooter. It's kind of hard to get up since it is a level 7. But its effect is once per turn, you can select and activate one of these effects. So you can move it to an adjacent unoccupied monster card zone. The second effect is that you can return one spell, one trap, or monster on your opponent's side of the field in the same column as this card's to its owner's hand. So you can bounce back anything, realistically. A monster, spell, or trap could maybe be utilized in a pendulum deck, although pendulums are kind of phased out, and I don't really know how you'd be able to recycle this card over and over. but I thought I'd mention it. The next card actually has a little bit of potential. I'm not actually sure on the ruling of this card. If you guys know the ruling on this, let me know. But anyways, Blasting Fuse, it says activate only when all 4 zones of this card's column are occupied and destroy all cards in this column. Now what's interesting is we actually have 5 columns technically now because of the whole link format. You guys will now see that potentially on some of the rows we could have 5 monsters. So I'm wondering if they are going to change that to it has to require 5, or if it has to not include the extra monster zone, because it just says zones of this card's column. I'm not sure if this is going to be a viable card, because if you don't need it to be 5, it could technically be used against certain decks. This could be pretty big, especially in a deck where maybe you don't really care about the other card that you have. Maybe it's a card like a Level Eater where it doesn't matter if it gets destroyed, and you set it up so you're going to make it line up with your opponent, and you're going to activate this card, and it's going to destroy their link monster plus the monster that they link summon after they go for the link monster that's linked to it. So it could be pretty big. The next card that we're going to be talking about is Whirlwind Machine Cyborg. Now, there's a lot of new archetypes coming out, again, that support the whole column mechanic. And this card is one of them. So, for this card, tribute summon but not set, the tributed monster is bounced back to the hand instead of being sent to the graveyard. Then once per turn, you get to discard a card, return all your opponent's card in the same column as this card to the hand. Again, this could definitely upset certain decks, and it has a little mechanic where it bounces back the monster, so you're not really going minus. But I'm not sure about this whole archetype, the Whirlwind Machine. There's a lot of archetype cards all about fans. I'm not sure if they're gonna make it. There's like another one lets you draw a card. It's not really, again, meta, but I figured I'd mention it just in case they make that archetype a thing. But next up, this is the one that really matters, and this is the archetype that everyone has their minds on right now, is the MAGI bullets, and they definitely revolve all around the whole column mechanic for their own archetype, and it can still technically be used, I guess, when your opponent's using some cards. You can definitely set up to where you can get a lot of extra advantage depending on where you place your cards. I have a bunch of videos already on this archetype. I'll also link that down below in case any of you guys missed out on this, but this is definitely going to be a very competitive high tier deck, the MAGI bullets. But it doesn't really require link summons at all. It's that whole column mechanic. Next up, this one over here is the Weathery cards. Now there's a new archetype called the Weatheries, and as some of the cards revolve around the whole columns, this is one of the spell cards that does revolve around it, and it makes it so you can only control one rain Weathery pattern, but Weathery affect monsters in the main monster zone in the same column as this card or adjacent to that main monster zone gain this effect. So it's a quick effect that you can banish this card, then target one spell or trap card your opponent controls and bounce it back to the hand. But again, it's trying to protect some of the cards. The next new card up, this one is generic though. It's called Blasting Wire. You get to target one card in the same column as this set card, destroy it. So what that means, if it confused anyone, is basically you put this in their link zone and you're going to negate one of their cards for the most part, on average. I know that when people are playing on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, unless you have this setting enabled, because this is actually a pretty important thing. If you guys are going to go into link format once Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro gets its update, very important, disable this auto card placement. Otherwise, it's going to place the card in the middle of the card section if you have this checked on. Again, this is going to be more relevant when links come out into Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Percy. I'm aware that there are other applications that you can use at the moment that can already have link summons, but like I said, I will be playing tons of link stuff once they update Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. But again, disable this card box, or this little check mark box. You don't want random card placing either, because you could technically get randomly put in the bad zone. So important thing if you're playing on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, and I'm sure on DevPro it's the same thing because it's a version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. But yeah, disable this once link comes out. Heck, right now a lot of people are still playing Magic Bullet, so make sure you have that setting off if you want to. I mean, I know that there's some decks like maybe Exodia or something that might not really care too much about it, but it's still pretty good just to get the practice in, and just disable that because you don't want to lose because of the zones. But yeah, like I said, this is just really good generic support for the whole column mechanic. If you're taking one link zone, usually you just place this in the other link zone. So just so no one's confused. If I take the left side, I'm going to probably place it in the right side, because if they're going to go for a extra deck monster, and this doesn't just have to be link monsters, it's just any monster from the extract that gets placed over here, it will get stopped. So important information about that. But anyways, next up there is Defense Zone. Again, another one of those generic column support cards. It says when a player controls a monster or monsters in their main monster zone, cards in that player's spell trap zone that are in the same column as those monsters cannot be destroyed by their opponent card effects. Also, their opponent cannot target those cards with card effects. This is actually a really fantastic card. It can kind of help certain archetypes have like a more boss monster, like a boss monster that has maybe that it cannot be affected in certain ways. This makes it even harder to destroy some of those combos, especially with like safe zone protecting some of the other stuff. It can get pretty dirty. But anyways, next up, the last card I want to talk about before I get into some of the rulings is with Shutline. So this is a counter trap card that says when a spell trap or effect monster is activated in the same column as a set card, negate the activation if you do destroy that card. So really, really good stuff. Just to, again, it's the same concept as the Blasting Wire. If you're taking one of the extra monster zones, you just place this in the same column as the other one, and therefore it will be a-okay, hopefully, unless they get rid of this card. But yeah, these are just generic supports. Very, very good cards. Again, I don't think any of the older ones, minus Blasting Fuse, and if anyone, again, knows the ruling on that, let me know. Now, important thing, tokens can, C-A-N, you will, yes, be able to use them for link monsters. So basically, doing Ojama Trio and taking the, well, first off, you can't steal the zones in the first place because they're not an extra monster, or extra deck monster. And your opponent's just going to be like, well, thank you, I'm just going to use those 3 tokens for link summons. So this is not counter link summons. Another card I wanted to mention, it was a Cynet Switch. Oh gosh, it's a spell card. This card was getting some hype. I forgot to mention it. Yes, here it is. Okay, we'll mention it right after. But I'll mention something about that. But anyways, so yeah, Ojama Trio will not counter link summons. So yeah, but anyways, yeah, that's real quick. The whole mechanic of kaijus, you can still tribute an opponent's monster, but it does not have to be in the same zone. So if I tribute my opponent's link monster, this card cannot and will not go to the extra monster zone. And if all of the zones are filled up and I want to tribute that link monster, it actually cannot actually fully resolve because there's not a spot for the kaiju to be placed. So if that makes sense. I explain it more in depth in my other video, but I'll link that down below. But basically in a nutshell, if they have one link monster and 5 other monsters, you cannot actually tribute and place this card because it does not have a proper zone to go to because it doesn't exist. But another important rule, ground collapse, you cannot select the extra monster zone. It's kind of a way of kind of making it so you can't just ground collapse and just shut your opponent down. Otherwise this card would be banned. So they're making a lot of changes to some of these cards. I'm sure that they will re-errata or change the wording on it because this is going to be now, it's going to change the wording in the OTG. I believe it's like main monster zone is what they're using with the new ground collapse. So you can't steal like the column that would be the extra monster zone and basically lock them out of the extra deck. You cannot do that. Another card that people were talking about that has to do with the whole link summon mechanic is Cynet Switch. So it lets you, during your main phase, you can move one monster on your side of the field to an adjacent unoccupied monster card zone. So what this can help you do is you make a link monster that normally wouldn't be the greatest because of its link arrows, perhaps pointing in the directions you don't want it to point in. You can actually move it, but yeah, I just figured I'd mention that really quick for some of you guys. But also important thing, it does say it has to be adjacent. I'm not sure on the ruling of this because at the moment you have to have a mutual link that goes completely to the other side. So let me go ahead and actually explain this because this is kind of complicated. So in order to actually steal this other extra deck monster, I can't make one link monster and if it points to the right, take this one. If it points down and then I have another link monster that points this way, another link monster that points this way, and another, you know, if I cover everything, yeah, I could technically have 7 monsters and I can steal both, but the link has to be like a complete link. Now, as far as this card, the Cynet Switch, I'm unaware if you actually need to have that complete. I don't know if you actually have to have that. I haven't heard any ruling on it. However, if that is technically possible and it is adjacent to it, I'm not sure if you could lock your opponent out. Again, there's a lot of crazy things that we have to go over as far as rulings, but I went over the ones that I wanted to go over with you guys that I was aware of. If you guys have any more information on any column mechanics or stealing monsters or any rulings like the Kaiju one or any other ones, I would love to hear them down below in the comment section below so we can get ready for this whole link summon format because there's going to be a lot of cards that are going to be completely changed errata, but I figured I'd help some of you guys out. And again, I want to ask you guys this question. What is better to go for in the very start of the game? The left zone or the right zone? Again, we're going to factor in that you don't know what your opponent is playing, okay? And there is no cards on the field. What do you take, the left or the right? Because it's been a question that I actually wanted to have a discussion with, but anyways, love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section below. But anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys learned something new with the whole link column mechanic. And if you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it, and I'll update you guys on any other crazy rulings or interesting things, mechanics like the kaiju one, because I was actually unaware of that one. But anyways, drop a like on the vid, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, if I could speak, if you would like to see more of these Yu-Gi-Oh! Link mechanic videos. But thanks for watching, and I'm signing out.